In problem 1 of homework 6, we're going to explore and build the market for money. The Caucasian Central Bank has set the reserve required ratio at 10% for checkable deposits. This T account for First National Bank of Caucasia has been copied and pasted into Excel. We're going to answer the questions in Excel and then come back and paste those into these answer blanks here. First, I'm going to total the right side of the T account. And when I do that, I get $68.44 billion. Over here, the required reserves are 10% of demand deposits. Then I'm going to total left side of the T account. The left side and the right side are supposed to be equal, but they're not. So excess reserves is the difference between 68.44 and 58.14. I'm going to copy these values one at a time into Cengage now. In part B, in the simple multiple deposit creation model, banks do not hold excess reserves, unlike what's going on up here. And no one holds currency. Suppose Fred deposits $2,000 he found buried in his backyard. At the moment Fred finds the money supply increases by $2,000. Because Fred's bank must hold $200 of his deposit in reserve, his bank can lend Jill 90% of Fred's deposit of $2,000, $1,800. At the moment Jill's loan amount is deposited into her account, the money supply increases by $1,800. Because Jill's bank must hold $180 of her deposit reserve, 10% of the $1,800, her bank can lend George 90% of that $1,800, which is $1,620. At the moment George's loan amount is deposited into his account, the money supply increases by $1,620. Because George's bank must hold $162 of that deposit in reserve, 10% of the $1,620. His bank can lend Jane 90% of the $1,620, which is $1,458. At the moment Jane's loan amount is deposited into her account, the money supply increases by $1,458. Lending money into existence continues in infinite many rounds until the demand deposit increases to exactly. When I pull this down to 1, each time I pull it down, I get a smaller incremental increase in the money supply via bank lending. And if I keep pulling this down until we get down to 0 pennies, the total of this column gives how much the money supply increased by when Fred finds $2,000 and deposits it into his account. The total is calculated by summing all these incremental increases in the money supply, and it is $20,000. Because the increase in demand deposits equals Fred's $2,000 cash injection divided by the required reserve ratio, the simple money multiplier equals 1 divided by 0.10, or 1 divided by 10%, which equals 10. The simple money multiplier implies money supply increases by $10 when the Caucasian Central Bank increases the quantity of reserves by $1. If the currency ratio is 2% and the excess reserve ratio is 12%, the money multiplier is what? The equation is found in the PowerPoint that corresponds to Chapter 6 of my textbook. You get there by going to my teaching page and then scrolling down until you see MBA 620. You click on that, you open up the PowerPoint to the appropriate slide, and you see here is the money multiplier. The money multiplier is the simple money multiplier if the currency ratio is 0 and excess reserves ratio is 0. But in this problem, that is not the case. So the currency ratio was 2%, the excess reserve ratio is 12%, Reserve requirement ratio is 10%. To calculate the money multiplier, you take the currency ratio, or currency drain, and add it to 1, and you divide that by the sum of these three parameters. And you get a money multiplier of 4.25. The money multiplier implies the money supply increases by $4.25 when the Croatian Central Bank increases the quantity of reserves by $1. In Part C, we have an initial money supply of $3.49 trillion. This is the demand equation for money because the slope is negative. The interest rate is the price of money, and M is the quantity of money. So the first thing I want to do is calculate the equilibrium quantity of money and equilibrium nominal rate of interest. Because the money supply is a vertical line at $3.49 trillion, equilibrium quantity of money is just $3.49 trillion. To get the interest rate at equilibrium, I have to plug this value into this equation. I already copied this stuff into Excel. So the equilibrium money supply is $3.49 trillion. I'm going to plug that into the demand equation, 12 minus 2 times the quantity of money in equilibrium, and I get 5.02%. And if you draw a line here over to here, it looks like we are correct. The nominal rate of interest, I, is the opportunity cost of holding money because it is the difference between the real interest rate and the expected inflation rate, yes. Interest payments are forgone on money that is held, yes. Inflation reduces the value of money that is held, yes. So all the above. If the interest rate starts here and it increases, then the quantity of money is declining as that interest rate rises. So the money demand does not shift, nor does money supply shift. So an increase in the nominal rate of interest increases the opportunity cost of holding money, decreases the quantity of money held along the demand curve for money, increases the rate of interest provided inflation is constant. So B and C only. Oh, wait a minute. I think I made a mistake in this part. The nominal rate of interest is the sum of the real rate of interest and the expected inflation rate. So this should be B and C only. If GDP grows, money demand shifts from black to red. So this is the new demand for money. And this is the original money supply. So I need to change the money demand equation's intercept to 13.5 to get the new equilibrium interest rate. The new equilibrium interest rate is 6.52. An increase in GDP is associated with higher interest rates, holding everything else constant. If inflation rises, money demand will shift from red to blue. And this is the money demand curve that corresponds to the higher GDP and the higher inflation rate. To get the new equilibrium money supply, I'm going to copy the intercept into my Excel spreadsheet. So the new equilibrium interest rate is 8.52. Money demand increases in technology like ATM machines, debit cards, and interest paid on checking deposits. After Kokoschka introduces these new technologies, money demand is given by the green equation. So money demand shifts up even further. To calculate the new interest rate, I'm going to copy the new intercept into Excel. And I get 9.52. Money demand is lower if consumers start using credit cards for most of their purchases. The introduction of credit cards to Kokoschka economy alters money demand. So it shifts from the green curve down to the purple curve. And the new money demand is given by the purple equation here. To calculate the new equilibrium interest rate, I'm going to copy and paste the new intercept into the money demand equation. So the new equilibrium interest rate is 7.72%. So if I go straight across from here to from the equilibrium to here, you can see that it's almost 8, or 7.72%. The Caucasian Central Bank conducts an open market purchase of $0.04 billion. Using the multiplier from the end of Part B, compute the increase in size of the money supply. Add this value to the initial value of the money supply to get the new money supply. These numbers have been copied into Excel, along with the money multiplier from Part B. So the open market purchase was $0.04 billion. The money multiplier is 4.25. The increase in the money supply is the product of these two numbers. So the money supply increased by 0.17. We have to add that to the original money supply of 3.49. So the new money supply is 3.66. And the new interest rate is that new value of the money supply substituted into the previous money demand equation, 14.7 minus 2 times the quantity of money. The new money supply is 3.66, and the new equilibrium interest rate is 7.38. The Caucasian Central Bank, A, lends money to its member banks at a lower rate than the market rate. And B, member banks know that the Caucasian Central Bank will lend money to avert a financial crisis. Thus, Caucasian banks are not reserve constrained. Banks that lend money to consumers and firms that had been borrowed from the Caucasian Central Bank at a lower rate is a form of arbitrage. Combining this with the fact that the Caucasian Central Bank will lend banks money to avert a financial crisis creates moral hazard. Due to the issues above, suppose Caucasian banks lend out an additional $0.6 billion. The resulting money supply is given by $0.6 billion plus 3.66. The new interest rate is the 4.26 evaluated at the latest money demand equation, 6.18. And you can see right down here that the interest rate is indeed 6.18. I'm going to let you guys do this on your own. I'm going to check my work, and I should get everything but these questions correct. And it looks like I got everything correct. With the exception of the problems I'm going to leave to you to do.